The wires up here, the signal lights for one, and they are changing those out too. They used to have incandescent bulbs in them. Now they put LED lights in there, and they can be seen for a greater distance, and the engineers up front just love it. They love those because it does get foggy up here, and I'll explain that in a few minutes. And they do go, that the LEDs go right through the fog, no problem. There are also switches along here that have to be electrically operated. And Jim told you about the propane tanks that you saw and what their uses are for the switches. Also along here you'll see these silver boxes alongside the track. Those boxes are not just there for silver here, looking for problems, such as a hot box, which is a bearing that's getting hot because it's either suffering from lack of lubrication or it is having another problem. And that's happened on this train several times, and we have had to stop, and the employees on the train have had to get out and check every wheel to see which one is hot and how hot it is. And if it's, if it's glowing red, the train's not going to move. If it's just a little bit warm, they'll let the train move and they'll check it at each station after that. And then when it gets like this train, when it gets to Seattle, they'll do maintenance on it, either change the bearing out or whatever they have to do. But there's a lot of safety features on this track that nobody has an idea what's going on. Now earlier I explained to you the engines on the front of the train being diesel electric. The diesel engines run a generator which runs a DC motor on each one of the trucks underneath the engines. And that pulls the train along. But what happens when we're going downhill like we are now? You don't feel like you're going downhill, but we are. Those motors are turned into generators, and they use those for what they call dynamic braking. The motors are turned into generators, and they do produce electricity, which they dissipate out of the top of the engines through a resistor, or it's like a radiator, to dissipate the heat that's produced. And there are fans up there that keep it cool, much like the radiator on your car. So we're under dynamic braking now from those engines. They're not pulling us, they're slowing us down. Now there are brakes on these cars. There are disc brakes on each one of these cars that can be used, and I'm sure that you have felt them come on like we're going to stop at a station. They will come on just a little bit to stop the train right exactly where they want it. But right now we're under dynamic braking from those engines. They're not using the brakes on these cars unless they absolutely have to. And we do have problems from time to time, like a tree falling on the track or a rock coming down on the track. They have to stop the train fast, so be prepared. It could happen at any time. When you're walking along, always have something you can grab onto. It would help you considerably. This track was rebuilt 2 years ago, and if you'll notice, we're not going clickety-clack like the old tracks used to do. That's because the old tracks were about 40-foot sections. They were bolted together and had a seam in them. And there usually was a 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch seam. And when the steel wheels went over that seam, it clickety-clacked. This is not a tunnel. This is a snow shed or a rock shed. This is not considered a tunnel. It's closed on the left side and over top of us, and now we're in a tunnel. So rock sheds are not considered tunnels.
Hey, how you doing?
And the reason for the rock sheds are,
what?
We have avalanches up here in the wintertime. And we have rock slides in the summertime, and we're going to go by one in a few miles that I'll point it out to you, a very big rock slide. that closed down this track for 3 months. The Amtrak did not run. The freight trains ran through Salt Lake City. And they worked 24/7, and this was in the middle of the winter time that this rock slide happened. It's very prominent. You will not be able to miss it. It's coming up here in about, half an hour or so. This gentleman is taking reservations for lunch. Grab them if you want to make a lunch reservation. Lunches are extremely good.
This mountain range off to our right is the David Douglas mountain range, a little over 6,000 feet high. These trees that are getting in your way of seeing things, those are Douglas firs. That's the state tree. It's grown in 35 of the 36 counties here in Oregon.
If you look at the little trees along the side of the track, they are Christmas trees. Those are Douglas fir trees. Here's a crew here working on your fiber optic cable on the left side of the train. They're waiting for us to go by so they can go back to work. This is a trestle we just went over, small one. Now, as you can see, on the right side, the canyon is going down, and we're staying up here. We have to. So this is where the train kind of loses time, because we're going to make a switchback in about 40 minutes. We're making a 180-degree turn and coming down the mountain like in steps. Then we'll go for 10 miles and we'll make another 180-degree turn. Any questions, please ask.
Isn't this section here known as Tunnel Alley?
Yes, it is.
I thought it was.
Yeah. That mountain on your right side, as Jim said, is David Douglas. There's you see a basalt rim about halfway down the mountain there. And above that basalt rim is a nature preserve area where nobody is allowed to go up in there because of the unusual plants that are in that area. And you can get permission from the Forest Service to go up there, but it's very rare indeed that people want to go up there. One of the few places in Oregon you can't hike. Now, as we come out of this tunnel, I believe this is tunnel number 5. On the right side, you'll be able to look down. I mean, straight down. On the left side, you'll be able to look straight up. We're clinging to the side of this mountain right now.
We're getting near.
Yeah, look down right now.
Hello. Watch that first step.
Yeah. Now, this is where the front of the train's in one tunnel, the rear train's in another. We got tunnels coming right after another.
Keep an eye out for a sighting up ahead. This is where once there was 3 water tanks back in the old era of steam train engines, and all the helper trains were stationed up here to help pull the grade or to help braking. And only one of those tanks remain today.
Another couple hours.
The practical jokes were in the order of the day back in steam. popular joint, the popular joke at the cruising sighting during the winter months was to blow down the locomotive. And you see those steam trains where the comes out of the front of the train going horizontal. They're blowing down. They're
There's another beautiful scene.
There's a snow shed we're going through, or a rock shed.
There's a few wildflowers left. They were quite profuse in the spring. Realize that when you bought your tickets, you get this extra added attraction at no extra cost.
There's actually two sections of the Coast Starlight that are really significant. Absolutely gorgeous.
Yes, it is. Klamath Falls. The state, the west side of the Cascades is liberal. The east side is conservative.
As goes Portland, so does the state.
We're getting into the maple trees now, and this is another part of this track that's absolutely beautiful in the fall of the year, especially looking down in that valley, because you have the mixture of the yellow leaves of the maple trees and the green of the evergreens, and then this blue sky. It's a sight to behold. That's the time I like the best, the fall of the year.
My wife and I go back east to do, and we do the leaf peeper thing down in Vermont, New Hampshire.
Well, that's what this is.
And I'll tell you what, this place here is just as beautiful, if not more beautiful. You're looking down on the tops of the trees when the tree color changes. It starts from the top down, and when you're above them looking down, it is quite the sight to behold. All the hardwoods are the ones that are the deciduous ones that change. That's why Vermont, New Hampshire, with all their maple syrup producing trees, are so beautiful.
Different people that I meet up with on the train. Every day is different people. Every day the scenery changes. Believe it or not, you're doing this for 5 years, you get to know the little subtle changes that are happening in the scenery that you don't ordinarily see when you're coming through here once in a blue moon. So these things are happening all the time. It's never boring for me. I always look forward to doing this job just so I can share it with you folks. Oh, yes. And we do have the 4 seasons here also. And it's beautiful coming through here in the wintertime. January, there is, especially right after a fresh snowfall, these trees are covered with snow. The branches are drooping down, and I'm sure that you've received Christmas cards or sent them out with a snow scene, with the trees all full of snow and everything. We have 40 miles of it here to look at in the wintertime. So don't not come in the wintertime, because it is beautiful.